Welcome to English Avenue YouTube, the channel to learn English the easy way. Let's start. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to open your minds and brace yourselves for a tale so unsettling, so profoundly disturbing, that it might seem like a dark chapter from the pages of a dystopian novel or the script of a chilling thriller. But let me be clear, this is no fictional account. No fabricated horror meant to entertain. Every word, every detail you are about to hear is the unfiltered raw truth. What I am about to share is not just a mere story. It is a grim reality, a chilling glimpse into a world so controlled, so mercilessly oppressed, that it will forever alter your perception of freedom and human dignity. Picture for a moment a society where personal choice is nothing more than an illusion, where the simple act of dressing as you wish is forbidden, where the music that stirs your soul is outlawed, and where even the words spoken within the supposed safety of your own home could become a death sentence. Imagine living in a place where a single misplaced comment, a whispered thought overheard by the wrong ears, could lead to your permanent disappearance, erasing your existence as though you had never lived. Envision a land where shedding tears at the leader's funeral is not a choice but an obligation. Fail to do so, and you might find yourself behind bars, subjected to a punishment so severe that it breaks the spirit of even the strongest individuals. Think of a country where the act of trying to flee to a better life does not only endanger you, but ensures the suffering of your entire family, condemning them to unimaginable consequences simply because you dared to dream of freedom. This is not a horror story, nor is it a cautionary tale meant to scare you into appreciating what you have. This is the chilling truth of life inside North Korea, a nation sealed off from the rest of the world, trapped behind an iron curtain of propaganda, fear, and absolute control. For decades, the suffering of millions has remained hidden from global eyes, buried under layers of lies, false narratives, and tightly controlled information. But today, I am pulling back that veil, exposing the grim reality that the North Korean regime desperately wants to keep secret. By the time you reach the end of this account, you will feel a range of emotions: disbelief, outrage, sorrow, and perhaps most importantly, a newfound sense of gratitude for the freedoms you may have taken for granted. The ability to choose your own clothes, to listen to the music you love, to speak your mind openly, to travel freely. These are luxuries that millions of North Koreans can only dream of. But don't just listen to the beginning of this story and turn away. Stay with me until the very last word, because only by understanding the full extent of this brutal reality can we truly grasp the depth of suffering endured by those who have no voice. Open your eyes, listen closely, and prepare yourself for the truth that many in power do not want you to know. For more than 7 decades, a single bloodline has gripped North Korea with an iron fist, ruling with absolute power and demanding unwavering obedience. This dynasty of tyranny began with Kim Il-sung, the nation's founding dictator, who meticulously constructed a regime rooted in fear, deception, and complete state control. His leadership laid the groundwork for a society in which the government dictated every aspect of life, and his carefully crafted cult of personality ensured that his name would be revered as if he were a deity. Upon his death, the reins of power seamlessly passed to his son, Kim Jong-il, who upheld his father's oppressive policies, further tightening the regime's stranglehold on the people and solidifying a system where dissent was met with merciless consequences. Today, the legacy of terror continues under Kim Jong-un, the third generation of this authoritarian lineage. The country remains trapped in a nightmare of forced adoration, extreme isolation, and inescapable suffering. For 3 generations, this family has reigned unchallenged, holding more than 26 million people hostage under their absolute rule. North Korea is not just a country. To the ruling family, it is a private kingdom, a personal empire where they enjoy unchecked power, indulging in unimaginable luxury, while the people they claim to protect endure levels of hardship that defy comprehension. While Kim Jong-un and his inner circle dine on the finest imported delicacies, the citizens of North Korea scavenge for scraps, forced to eat tree bark, grass, and anything they can find just to survive. While the dictator flies in private jets, owns extravagant palaces, and enjoys the finest entertainment that wealth can buy, the majority of North Koreans live in destitution, toiling under harsh conditions with little hope for a better future. And perhaps the most horrifying aspect of it all? No one is permitted to speak out. No one is allowed to question the system. Even the slightest hint of disloyalty, an overheard comment, a missing tear at a government-mandated mourning event, a whispered complaint, can lead to severe punishment, imprisonment, or even death. The people are not just controlled. They are stripped of their humanity, conditioned to believe that the suffering they endure is normal, and that the leader they serve is a god. In most parts of the world, parents play a fundamental role in shaping their children's future, making decisions about their education, career paths, and overall well-being. But in North Korea, these rights are stripped away entirely, replaced by a ruthless system of government control that begins the moment a child takes their first breath. The state decides everything: where they will live, what they will learn, what career they will be forced into, and even how much food they will be allowed to eat. One of the most disturbing tools of oppression that ensures this rigid structure remains unchallenged is the songbun system, a deeply entrenched social caste structure that predetermines the destiny of every North Korean based solely on the actions of their ancestors. Songbun is more than just a classification. It is an invisible prison that dictates a person's opportunities, or lack thereof, before they even learn to speak. It is an unbreakable chain that binds families to a fate determined not by their own choices, intelligence, or hard work, but by the perceived political loyalty of those who came before them. If a child's grandfather once fought for the ruling regime, remained devoted to the leadership, or demonstrated unwavering servitude, that child may be granted rare privileges, access to decent education, a comfortable place to live, or a respectable government job. But if an ancestor made the fatal mistake of questioning the system, had associations with foreigners, or was accused of any form of disloyalty, the entire family is marked. This mark is permanent, condemning generations to a life of suffering, assigned to menial labor, denied higher education, and branded as potential enemies of the state. The cruelty of songbun lies in its absolute permanence. Unlike in other nations, where personal ambition and perseverance can help people overcome obstacles and change their circumstances, North Korea offers no such hope. No amount of hard work, no display of loyalty, no sacrifice or devotion will ever be enough to alter one's songbun. If your bloodline is tainted by even a single act of perceived betrayal, you will spend your entire existence paying for sins you did not commit. The most horrifying reality? You can be punished for something your great-grandfather did. A man you never met, whose choices you had no control over. You will suffer because of a decision made before you were even born. There is no redemption, no opportunity to prove oneself, and no escape. Songbun is not just unfair. It is a form of oppression so cruel, so meticulously calculated, that it robs an entire population of the most basic human right, the right to control their own destiny. But in North Korea, control extends far beyond your predetermined social status. It reaches into the most personal aspects of daily life, dictating even how a person must look, dress, and present themselves to the world. While in most countries, people have the freedom to express their individuality through fashion, hair, and personal style, in North Korea, such liberties do not exist. The government enforces a strict dress code, where every detail of one's appearance is regulated and deviations are met with severe punishment. For women, skirts must always reach an acceptable length, ensuring that no part of their legs is exposed beyond what the government deems appropriate. Wearing jeans, short skirts, or any form-fitting clothing is strictly forbidden. Any woman who dares to wear something considered too modern or influenced by the outside world risks immediate repercussions. Makeup, particularly red lipstick, is outlawed entirely, as it is viewed as a dangerous Western influence. A woman caught applying even the smallest hint of color to her lips could be arrested on the spot. The restrictions do not end there. Men are also subjected to the state's control over appearance. There are only 50 officially approved hairstyles, and any attempt to style one's hair outside of these limited options is seen as an act of defiance. Men are not allowed to grow their hair beyond a government-set length, and those who do risk being stopped by authorities and forced into compliance. The consequences of violating these absurd regulations are anything but minor. In one particularly infamous case, a woman in the capital city was arrested for wearing tight pants. Her seemingly harmless choice of attire was deemed unacceptable, and as a result, she was immediately sent to a re-education camp, a place notorious for forced labor, relentless indoctrination, and brutal treatment. For months, she was subjected to harsh physical work, enduring back-breaking tasks from sunrise to sunset, all because she wore an outfit that the government deemed too modern. The idea of being sent to a prison camp for something as insignificant as clothing may seem laughable, but in North Korea, this is not an exaggeration, it is reality. Even something as trivial as the way you dress can be the difference between living freely or spending months, or even years, in a labor camp. In a world where fashion is often a means of self-expression, North Koreans are stripped of this basic right, forced to conform to a uniformed existence where individuality is seen as a threat to the regime. In North Korea, even the most fundamental necessity of life, food, is a privilege dictated by the government. Unlike in most countries, where people, regardless of their social standing, can walk into a supermarket and choose what to buy based on their means, North Koreans have no such freedom. The distribution of food is meticulously controlled by the state, leaving the population at the mercy of a system that prioritizes loyalty over basic survival. Every family is assigned a fixed monthly ration, a strict allocation determined entirely by their songbun, the deeply entrenched social classification system. For those fortunate enough to have a high ranking, this ration may include rice, eggs, and a small selection of vegetables. a modest diet, but far better than what others receive. However, for those labeled as untrustworthy or disloyal to the regime, their rations are drastically limited, often consisting of nothing more than corn and cabbage, leaving them perpetually malnourished. Meat is an unattainable luxury for the vast majority of North Koreans, something they may only dream of, but never actually taste. Even the most basic sources of protein, such as fish or poultry, are reserved for the elite and those in positions of power. One man who managed to escape from North Korea shared a chilling memory from his childhood. His family was given only 3 kilograms of rice per month, an amount so insufficient that they had no choice but to stretch it as far as possible. To do so, they resorted to mixing it with grass, tree bark, and anything remotely edible, just to create the illusion of a meal. Hunger was a constant presence in their lives, an inescapable reality that shaped every decision they made. For those desperate to survive, an underground black market for food exists, where people secretly trade whatever they can obtain. Here, those with money or valuable goods might have a chance to buy rice, flour, or even small portions of meat. However, participating in these illegal exchanges comes with immense danger. If caught, individuals face severe punishments, ranging from long-term imprisonment in forced labor camps to public execution, all for the simple act of trying to feed themselves or their families. The government views unsanctioned trade as a direct threat to their control, and anyone engaging in such activities is considered an enemy of the state. The situation is so dire that famine is not a thing of the past in North Korea. It is an ongoing crisis. Malnutrition is widespread, and starvation remains a leading cause of death, particularly among children and the elderly. In the 1990s, a devastating famine claimed the lives of millions, yet the regime continued to funnel resources into military programs and extravagant luxuries for the ruling class rather than aiding its suffering population. Even today, while Kim Jong-un and his inner circle feast on imported delicacies, drink fine wines, and indulge in the best cuisine the world has to offer, millions of ordinary citizens are left to endure hunger, desperation, and the terrifying uncertainty of whether they will live to see another day. In North Korea, food is not just a necessity. It is a weapon used to control, oppress, and punish those deemed unworthy by the regime. But the most horrifying aspect of control in North Korea is not the physical restrictions imposed upon its people. It is the absolute domination of their minds. From the moment they are born, North Koreans are subjected to a relentless indoctrination campaign designed to instill unwavering devotion to their leader. They are not merely taught that he is a ruler, but that he is an almost divine being, a figure above any ordinary human, whose wisdom and power are absolute. From childhood, they are required to memorize his words, recite his teachings, and publicly demonstrate admiration for him. Any deviation from this forced reverence is met with harsh consequences. Every home in North Korea must prominently display framed portraits of the nation's leaders, and these images must be treated with the utmost care and respect. Government-appointed inspectors frequently visit households to ensure that the portraits are clean, properly positioned, and in pristine condition. If any damage is found, even a speck of dust or a slightly crooked frame, the family can be severely punished. The devotion to these images is so extreme that, in the event of a fire, citizens are expected to prioritize saving the portraits over their own loved ones. It is not an exaggeration. This is a legal requirement. One particularly tragic case tells the story of a man whose house caught fire in the middle of the night. In a desperate attempt to save his young daughter, he rushed to carry her out of the burning home. But in the chaos, he neglected to retrieve the portraits of the leaders from the wall. The next day, despite having lost everything, instead of receiving help or sympathy, he was arrested and taken away. His crime? Failing to protect the images of the nation's supreme leaders. In North Korea, loyalty to the regime is not a choice. It is a matter of survival, demanded at all costs, even at the expense of one's own family. And this is only the beginning of the nightmare. Beyond the iron grip of government control, beyond the brainwashing and surveillance, North Korea harbors a network of labor camps so brutal, so inhumane, that they rival the worst atrocities in modern history. These camps are places of unimaginable suffering, where prisoners are stripped of their dignity, their humanity, and often their lives. The inmates, many of whom have committed no crime other than expressing a forbidden thought or being born into the wrong family, are subjected to relentless, backbreaking labor from the moment the sun rises until long past nightfall. Their bodies are pushed to the brink, with no rest, no mercy, and no hope of escape. They are given barely enough sustenance to survive, often just a handful of rice mixed with dirt, moldy scraps, or contaminated water. Hunger consumes them so entirely that many resort to eating anything they can find: grass, tree bark, insects, and even rats. One former prisoner recounted the sheer desperation inside these camps, describing how people would fight to the death over a single dead rat because starvation had driven them to madness. The horror does not stop there. The conditions in these camps are beyond cruel. Prisoners who fail to meet their impossible work quotas, who stumble from exhaustion, or who are caught whispering to one another are savagely beaten, sometimes to the point of death. Executions are routine, often carried out publicly as a warning to others. Some are shot in front of their fellow inmates. Others are forced into labor until their bodies give out, and they collapse, discarded like waste. And what crimes have these people committed to deserve such hellish torment? They dared to listen to foreign music. They watched a smuggled South Korean drama. They uttered a joke about the regime. They failed to bow deeply enough before a statue of their so-called leader. In North Korea, even the suspicion of disloyalty can seal a person's fate, condemning them, and often their entire family, to a slow and agonizing death behind the walls of these modern-day gulags. Yet despite this near-total control, despite the constant fear, and the government's efforts to suffocate any whisper of rebellion, there are those who refuse to submit. Underground networks, operating in secrecy and at extreme personal risk, are working to help North Koreans escape. Smugglers, defectors, and activists on the outside provide safe passage, guiding desperate individuals across borders, through perilous routes, and toward the promise of freedom. But the price of failure is unimaginable. Those caught attempting to flee are executed immediately, often in public to serve as a warning to others. And the cruelty does not end with them. North Korea's policy of 3 generations of punishment ensures that their families, even their distant relatives, will be arrested, tortured, or sent to labor camps in their place. A single act of defiance does not only destroy one person's life, it dooms entire bloodlines. And yet, even in the face of such overwhelming oppression, hope persists. More and more North Koreans are taking the ultimate risk, daring to break free, daring to expose the lies they have been fed since birth. Some manage to reach safety in South Korea, where they share their testimonies, shattering the carefully constructed illusion that the regime has built. Others, still trapped inside, secretly access forbidden information, smuggled radios, USB drives filled with foreign news, glimpses of a world beyond their borders. These tiny cracks in the government's control are growing, and the illusion is beginning to break. One day the regime will fall. It is not a matter of if, but when. And when that day comes, when the walls of this prison nation finally collapse, the world will bear witness to the full scale of suffering, the depth of deception, and most importantly, the unimaginable strength and resilience of those who endured. The world must be ready to hear their voices, to learn their stories, and to ensure that such horrors are never repeated. Because North Korea is not just a country, it is a cage. But no cage, no matter how fortified, can keep its captives contained forever. Freedom is coming. The only question is how long the world will allow this nightmare to continue before it does.